all three of us are going to be buzzkills with this next little segment. We're going to do a little Legends Row of the top NFL draft bus. And because, the draft has pretty much just happened and, we're all in that draft mode. If you're not familiar with this segment, what we do is basically compile a list of, the best players at something. In this case, it'll be the worst players at something. So they're garnering attention for the absolute worst possible cause. But I'll kick it to one of you guys first. Who is number one on your board on your Legends Row of the top NFL draft busts?
Well, I think Rob's gonna excel at this one, but I think I can go with the no-brainer, and I'm gonna take Jamarcus Russell off the board. Like this guy, what happened to this guy? Jesus! And it's funny because we were talking last week about you guys were mentioning. I think you guys were talking about, was it Hayward Bay, who had that great Hayward pro day, yeah. And we're talking about Jamarcus Russell, who probably delivered one of the best pro day performances ever, and the late Raiders owner Al Davis was convinced, even went on record saying that this guy was going to be a Hall of Famer. Okay, Al. Okay.
All because at his pro day he could throw the ball 80 yards from his knees.
Yep. Al was as right as his son's haircut is popular.
Yeah. Just win, baby. Just win.
He's got to fix that hair, man. You're a billionaire. You can't be walking around with that kind of flow as a billionaire.
But like you as being a buzzkill, his hair is part of his MO, man. That's his thing. He stands out because of it.
I'm not liking this buzzkill nickname. It's already buzzkilling me right now.
Hey, didn't this guy have something to do with some like infamous like a blank DVD story or something like that? Do you guys remember that? Jamarcus Russell, something about a blank DVD story. Like he is.
It's something along the lines of they told him to go watch some film and they gave it to him on a blank, but it was blank because they thought he was skipping out on like watching the film. So he comes back and he's like, "Yeah, I watched it. It was really good." Or like he picked some things out of it, and it was a blank DVD. So they caught him in his lie.
They do that a lot. They do that when they send out. Before the draft, they'll send out playbooks to guys to see what they think, and sometimes on a page they'll like rip out. They'll put something that like if you read it, you would have never, you wouldn't not notice it. Yeah. So that's essentially, I believe Jamarcus said he'd come back and play for free.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, just to get that. Listen, this could not. This almost, in my opinion, couldn't even be a Legends Row. This could be a Mount Rushmore because this guy is alone.
Listen, the only thing that this guy's memorized is the left side of the menu at the Sizzler. Okay?
Yeah, he's a big boy, and he had a great year at LSU. It just shows that drafting quarterbacks going from college to NFL, it's a different sport.
But the thing that I love about the bust though, it's always when you name a bust of that year, you always then look at the couple guys that they missed out on. So here's a couple names for you: Calvin Johnson.
Yeah.
Joe Thomas, Adrian Peterson.
That's what I had. I had I had Calvin Johnson written down because actually all of my guys kind of have a guy behind them.
Yeah.
So I guess that's number one. I'll go with another guy that's no stranger to Frank and the Colts, but I mean there was the Ryan Leaf. Ryan Leaf's got to be number two. I got three quarterbacks, so I mean in this spot at least they didn't pass on Peyton, but man, just that guy fell apart 3 starts in, and
you could almost do just a Legends Row of the quarterbacks taken because teams they listen, quarterbacks get taken in the first round often because teams are going to reach, they want that franchise quarterback. But as we stated last week, there's no guarantee. Actually, it's still a huge, almost like you got to win the lottery to get a franchise quarterback still, even when you select in the first round. So these guys that they've drafted, there are so many quarterbacks that have been drafted in the first round high, first overall, second overall, third overall, that amounted to zero, to nothing, like a Ryan Leaf, who, by the way, had the amazing stat in his first year playing, the 2 touchdown, 15 interception ratio. Oh, God. Terrible.
He was a beauty, and then he had to blow up with the
reporter.
With the media, yeah, just everything, just
an all-out mess.
I think he served some time too, didn't he?
He did, poor guy. Yeah. Did turn his life around though. He's he's an analyst now, I think, on one of the networks. Pretty good too.
Okay, Joe.
I already got.
Oh man, where can I go with this? Oh, there's so many. I don't know which one I want to select. But I feel bad picking him because I almost feel like his organization totally let him down. But I'm going to go with RG3. He wins the Rookie of the Year the first year. He was incredible the first year. Funny story for you. I met RG3 at the casino in Monte Carlo in 2013. This was right after he had his knee surgery. And I remember going up to him and saying, "Hey, buddy, how's the knee?" And he was super cool, chill guy, really nice. Washington messed him up. He shouldn't have been playing that playoff game. If you don't remember, he had a sprained knee at the time against doctor's orders. Dr. James Andrews, I'm going to throw that big name out there for you. Against doctor's orders, they played him anyways. He ends up tearing his ACL and PCL, and he's never the same after that. So I'm putting him on the list, but with an asterisk because I feel bad for the guy.
See, but I wouldn't put him on just because he had a great, like, he won Rookie of the Year. Like, he had a great year. He was playing that field. If you ever want to go back and watch that game, that field was a disaster. A disaster. Like, Washington 100% screwed him up, and they didn't help that they played on the worst field I've ever seen in an NFL game.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Frank.
All right, this might not be a popular one. I just like the story behind it, but I'm going to go back to the quarterback. I'm going to go with a guy named Achilles Smith from the University of Oregon.
Good choice.
And I like this one because the Bengals were so convinced he was the guy to build around that they turned down Mike Ditka's offer from the Saints of the 1999, all the draft picks along with the first-round picks in 2000 and 2001. And they ended up taking this guy. So can imagine what that haul would have been after Ditka was the same guy who, used all his draft picks just to acquire the pick to take Ricky Williams. So I think the story's too good to pass up.
That was a great draft. He picked and then he left.
He left on the bus with the cigar in his mouth.
We won the draft.
That is a boss move. I'm gonna just leave I don't even need to be here. I'm lighting up the cigar. Done.
But like, what if there was a guy you liked in the fourth round? He was just like, that was a paycheck for him, that team.
Yeah.
So I'll go with one, and I got to go with, it's more of a team one, but this guy was the worst of them all. The Detroit Lions went like 4 straight years drafting wide receivers. And so I'll go with Charles Rogers. I believe they went wide receiver. Now, one of them ended up being Calvin Johnson, so it worked out. I believe the other guy was a USC guy, Mike Williams, if I remember correctly. But Charles Rogers was second overall. And again, following the theme of looking past who had been drafted behind him. Yeah, a little guy named Andre Johnson who ended up being a decent wide receiver. So,
all right, I'm gonna put 2 guys in Legends Row right now, right next to each other, because they're actually part of history together, because they both played in probably the greatest football game I've ever seen in my life, which was the 2006 Rose Bowl, I believe it was, right?
2005, I believe. Or maybe 5, 6, yeah.
Okay, whatever. Anyways, it was USC versus Texas. Matt Leinart and Vince Young. Both of these guys got drafted the same year, drafted pretty high, came with a lot of expectations. Leinart did absolutely nothing in the NFL. Like, zilch, nada. And Vince Young, I mean, he had a decent seasons in Tennessee, but really never lived up to the hype, not even close. So I'm going to put them 2 together in my Legends Row, so you see them together arm in arm.
He had some decent years, Vince Young. Decent. Not great, but
when you watch that game, you're like, wow, this guy is a stud.
Yeah, they were that was the greatest football game I've ever seen. And Matty Leinart was given shit for going back. It was the right decision. He went back and just lived it up. I wouldn't have left USC, but he didn't have the arm strength. He couldn't make all the throws. It's just And it just goes that his team was just unbelievable. Like they had everybody, so it was like he was just throwing open guys. It just shows you that it almost hurts you coming from a big school. Frank. You're on mute, buddy.
Don't you just hate when that happens? I was gonna go with the Vince Young one, but you know what? I'm gonna go to a running back here, almost because again, I get kind of what Joe's sentiment. It was that it's the team you give this more to than the player itself. But if you guys remember a running back named of Lawrence Phillips, drafted by the St. Louis Rams, this guy had a huge rap sheet coming out of college, and I guess people don't do their due diligence. He came out of Nebraska, and right before the draft, he was arrested for assaulting his girlfriend. So that's always a great start. But the Rams tried to look past it and thought he was going to turn the corner. So they draft the guy, and he ended up cutting him the next year. So it's like, how do you waste such a high pick on a running back? And then the guy ends up in prison anyway. So it's like, just think of it's like having 20 guys in a room. 19 guys say, yeah, I'm not taking this guy. We don't trust his rap sheet. But that one guy says, you know what? We should take a chance because he looks like he's pretty good.
Everyone wants to be the guy to turn that guy's life around. Everyone wants to be the hero. He actually had a cup of coffee in the CFL, I believe.
I think with the Alouettes, yeah.
Yeah.
He sounds like a Dallas Cowboys draft pick. You remember we were talking about Oakland Raiders going off the board for fast wide receivers?
Oh, yeah.
Anybody that has a rap sheet, the Dallas Cowboys. That's the That's the only shocking thing is that he didn't sign with the Cowboys after he got cut. Okay, I got one more, and so I had a Russell Leaf Rogers. The last one is more current. I wouldn't say the guy he's awful, but just given what was behind him, and this is an ode to our buddy, our Montreal Canadiens correspondent, but I'm going to go with Mitch Trubisky, who was drafted at number 2. Hasn't had an awful career. I think he's got a winning record, but he's got a pretty good team around him. And just seeing that the Bears moved up to draft him and traded all those assets, and they passed on Deshaun Watson and I believe the other guy was Patrick Mahomes. I don't know. I'm not sure. Like that's tough. Good. Yeah, he's okay at football. So not only did they draft Mitch Trubisky, they traded up to take him. He'd be my last guy, even though he hasn't been bad, but it just follows the theme of it's not just that you whiff. Who came behind him is the other problem. So Mitch Trubisky.
I could just list a bunch of quarterbacks that probably could fall into here. Tim Couch, Sam Bradford, Jared Goff. All these guys are first overall picks that amounted to like nothing. They just sucked. What about this player didn't end up being a bust, but what about we could put the team, the team photo on the Legends Row, and I'm talking about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the 80s. Bo Jackson, everybody knows who Bo Jackson is, one of the greatest athletes ever, played pro baseball and football. He told the Bucs not to draft him in 1986. And they did it anyways, and that cost Bo Jackson his collegiate eligibility for his final season of baseball. So he said, okay, I see what you're saying. He doesn't report to them, doesn't give them any time of day. They end up forfeiting his rights the next season, so they wasted the first overall pick. The guy didn't even play a game for them because they didn't listen to him. So Tampa Bay Buccaneers of the 80s, you get your own wing of Legends Row of the top bus.
That's a great story. That's almost the I believe they were the Baltimore Colts circa 1983 when John Elway said, "I'm not playing for you. You draft me. I'll go play baseball." It's kind of a similar, and I guess it would have been a similar era too. When was that draft? Joe, was it like 88 or 89, somewhere up there?
Something like that, yeah.
Kind of a similar story. You got any more, Frank?
I just have an honorable mention just because I just came across this, but this is fantastic. Listen to this guy. Maybe the name rings a bell, but Russell Erxleben. I didn't
Never heard of him.
Erxleben. He's a punter from the New Orleans Saints. they took, like, even to use a top 100 selection on a punter is incredible. In 1979, the Saints took him 11th overall because they thought he could kick and punt.
What?
Dynamic.
His claim to fame is he threw a pick six that cost the Saints a win in his first game, and that about summarized his career.
Did he?
So yeah.
Did
maybe he was
MVP?
as good as the guy in The Replacement, the leg. You know, he could kick it like 80 yards.
Who was the guy that? Who's the guy that won the MVP? The kicker that won the MVP that year? Maybe they thought he was going to be the next that guy.
We named a segment after him, didn't we?
Yeah, but we didn't follow up because it was just so ridiculous. I believe the Bucs.
This guy made 50% of his.
Oh boy.
I think the Bucs took Aguayo in the first round like a few years ago and cut him like the next year. I believe it was Aguayo.
Yeah. Hey, Bobby, I think you should be like the tour guide when people come see the Legends Roll bus, you know, because you're the buzzkill. So you like prepare them for it. Be like, I am so happy to announce that you are going to enter a wing of failure here.
I love bus. I love introducing them. It's my favorite. I got a little story for all of them. So it's actually not a bad career choice. I got one honorable mention. He wasn't really, he was a bust, but it wasn't as bad because he was a third round pick. But there's a man by the name of Giovanni Carmassi that was drafted in the third round by the San Francisco 49ers. Now that might not mean a lot to people. The only problem is that there was a young man by the name of Thomas Edward John Smith, whatever the hell his middle name is, Brady, that was dying to play for the San Francisco 49ers. And, of course, we know folklore of Tom Brady goes. And isn't it ironic that they play each other in the Hall of Fame game that year? And they're like, we thought we had the next Joe Montana, and it turns out Joe Montana was playing for the other team. It was actually in the Brady 6 that was on Sunday that I watched for like the 9th time because it's one of my favorite documentaries. But Giovanni Carmassi, drafted 3rd overall, spent a year there. 3rd round, sorry. And then I believe they said he's a sheep herder that doesn't own a television, living in Northern California. So
wow.
Declined. If you haven't seen the Brady 6 documentary, it'll make you cry, and it makes you respect Tom Brady. It's unbelievable.
On that note, I love that last line. We thought we had the next Joe Montana, but he was playing on the other side. I love it.
Turns out he was, and and they were, and Bill Belichick's like, we were pretty happy after we saw that game with what we had in Tom. So,
all right.